Welcome to another IoT intro video. I'm your host Ulno, and today we will talk about MQTT in IoTempower. IoTempower has some special features that make working with MQTT easier, and we will showcase these today. I have another video where we talk about using MQTT a bit more bare bones, but today we will focus on the other features you get to help you work with MQTT in IoTempower. We have the normal setup here. We have our IoT gateway running Mosquito and IoTempower. So we'll mainly log into this device today and use MQTT there. I will show a couple of shells that run on my local computer to run MQTT here on the local computer and as a mixed setup. So as we have the setup with my normal network, we can check here. We are connected to IoTempower my own. You see the default IP address is 192.168.12.1 for the gateway, and Mosquito, the MQTT broker, is running on this. So if we want to log in to the IoT gateway, we just do here SSH -l IoT gateway, and the default password is IoTempower. And now we are on the server. We can quickly check that Mosquito is running. And yes, it seems to be running. Check again, it's the same process, so it's also not crashing or so. So we have Mosquito running here. And so, as I said, I will go on several terminals in here. So we are now on these two terminals. We are here on the IoT gateway, and I will also stay here on my computer on this one. We will run some normal MQTT commands here to do this. Of course, if you have IoTempower installed on your local PC, you can do all of this also from your local PC, but you might have to tell IoTempower where your MQTT server is located. If you work on IoTempower on the Raspberry Pi gateway, it knows all these addresses automatically. So if you remember in the other video, we have to actually specify a host. And I mentioned just now, if you want to use MQTT with an IoTempower setup, you usually don't have to specify it because it knows based on the environment variables where your MQTT broker or MQTT host is running. So, but we have to enter the IoT environment. So that's always, you want to do something with IoTempower, type in IoT or IoTempower, and then you see you enter the IoT environment. So let's enter the IoT environment. So, and if you want to know what MQTT commands you have into IoTempower, just type in MQTT and do 2 times the tab key. And you see we have also here something like MQTT listen, and we have something like MQTT send, and that corresponds to MQTT subscribe and MQTT publish. So we will do basically the equivalent now for MQTT subscribe, which is MQTT listen. And you wonder, how does this work? You can do a -- help or specify nothing, and then you get a small explanation. You can see here it basically just takes a topic or a subtopic. And so basically I can now say MQTT listen sandbox and sandbox test. This is the same I do in the other video, and you basically see it listens on everything that is coming under test. So it actually tells you what it is subscribing to. And so I now can use the equivalent MQTT send. And so let's look what this is doing. There you have to give the topic and the message. So you can do MQTT send, and we say here sandbox test and say hello world. I'm actually not doing an exclamation mark because it has a special meaning in shell language. So if I want to do just this, then it comes like this. But if I want to do an exclamation mark, I have to enclose this in quotation marks. And you see then it also sends the exclamation mark. And you see already here, it automatically also prints out the topic that it sends to. So if I, up here, if I run this without test, it will also, if I send things to test, give this directly out there. So there's one strange thing. You might usually, if you want to access a global topic, put a slash before it. So you wanted to say actually MQTT listen slash sandbox, because then you are always sure that it actually starts with a topic sandbox, because IoTempower always kind of looks for the environment that you are in. So if you're on the IoT gateway, then there is usually some IoT systems example folder. And if I go to some specific system like the demo 01 system here, and if it would now listen, and in this system I go to test 1. This is one of the devices that is pre-configured in there. And if I now run MQTT listen sandbox without the slash, you will see that it actually takes the hierarchy into account. So if you have a system of kitchen, and in the kitchen you have a fridge, and in the fridge you have temperature, then it will actually, and if you run it from the folder from the fridge, it will always precede your URL with the actual position in the hierarchy. This is when you want to, instead of listen to sandbox directly, want to listen to the slash to make sure that you are actually listening to the top level. But it makes it really easy if you want to test a specific device. You can use MQTT send and MQTT listen in this folder, and then things get automatically the whole first part of the URL generated for you. So let's do a listen again for sandbox in the test 01. So if I go in the other folder down here, also in this directory, so in IoT systems, and there go to the demo 01 system, and here into the pre-configured node. And if I now do an MQTT send, I can send to sandbox test message, and then you see test message comes up here. And let's precede this by a slash, and then you see the message doesn't come because it is actually sent somewhere else. It tells you where it actually sends things. So let's now MQTT listen to sandbox in general. And I'm sending it here, and send this here too. And mix it with actually making my local computer taking part here too as a remote device. So we can actually here use now Mosquito subscribe to the host IoT gateway to the topic sandbox. And now we send to sandbox here the test message, and you see they come on both devices. Or if you want to have the topic, you can add the verbose flag here. And now we get it with the index before. Okay, this is one of the things they can do. You see the commands are a little bit easier to use, but you have to be a little bit careful that you get the right location of what you're listening to, and sometimes you have to be careful in which folder you actually are, because it might change the topic. So, but we don't want to do something when we receive messages. So the fun thing is what we can do now. I will now listen here on the whole sandbox and everything below. And there is a pretty fun script that is, we'll leave this folder now so that we are not affected by this pass. So if you look at the available MQTT commands, there is an MQTT action. And this is kind of a slightly magic script. With MQTT action, you can actually react to messages that come on MQTT. I highly encourage playing a little bit with this, because you can do a lot of automation just with one command line with this. But we will look at payload, and payload allows me to react to a specific payload. MQTT action. And then as next I have to say the topic I'm listening to. So I'm listening to sandbox. And then I need to give the type. I say payload. And let's say we want to react if we get an on sent. Yeah? We want to call a script that switches something on. And but we can actually also call an MQTT send then and say, we want to actually send something out. So we send actually now to sandbox switch 01. We want to send, then when we receive on, we want to send there a 1 to sandbox switch. So, and then we basically say here, okay, let's send to sandbox an on command. Okay, you see, now we listen here on my computer for everything that comes on sandbox, and if we send an on, it automatically sends forwards the on as a 1. And it actually adds also the payload to it. So we always get the payload. So for the other types here, you can actually forward the original payload, but you can modify the payload this way. Or if you swallow one part of the payload, then this way it works. So this is a super easy way. You can easily do something that locally on a Raspberry Pi, you use this command and then you call a GPIO port on the Raspberry Pi and set something based on this. And this way you have an automation that is done completely without any programming language, just in the command line. You can integrate commands that come via MQTT and then should react somewhere else. Or you can forward them so that another MQTT device can connect. So basically, you can do a lot of things with the IoTempower, MQTT commands. You can even do integration. So you need MQTT listen, you need MQTT send, and MQTT action, and you can build your first IoT system just with that. I hope you enjoyed that, and stay tuned. I hope you are curious to learn more about IoTempower. Come back soon, and ciao.